Good morning to you, Stephen. You're obviously former Secretary of State for Health. We got a very distinct change in tone yesterday, didn't we, from the government when it comes to next Monday in England? Much more talk about caution, expectation of wearing masks. I mean, for you personally, are you going to carry on wearing masks on trains or buses or inside shops?
Short answer to your question is yes, I am. And I'm going to do it partly because it does give some protection to me, to myself. But more importantly, the science is that if I was an unknowing carrier, although I've been double jabbed, if I was an unknowing carrier of the COVID virus, then wearing a mask would reduce the chances of me passing it on to someone else. And I think what we've seen from the government over the last several weeks on the plans for next Monday is sadly a repetition of what we've seen throughout this pandemic, which is mixed messaging. It's unclear. They announce an attitude one day, which they then have to row back from. In this case, partly because the science was against the original messaging, and also because it's very clear that public opinion is on the side of science and against the original messaging.
Mr. Dorrell, good morning to you. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It seems as we get nearer to a date, there's a bit of backtracking that goes on, more, obviously cautiousness, but it's very confusing for the general public. I mean, we've had 18 months of this now. I just wonder about your feelings on this whole personal responsibility thing, bus and train, they will be the ones to call whether it is mandatory to wear masks. What do you make of these comments? This sort of almost get the government saying we're not going to deal with it anymore. It's up to you guys and these certain other companies. How do you feel?
Well, the government is presumably paying somebody to put up notices on motorways all around the country saying, let's take the next steps safely. And I agree with that. And I think that the government ministers would have been better advised to have emphasised that I'm in favour, actually, of relaxation next Monday. I think there is an argument, a strong argument, that says that at this time of year, obviously, the people are outside, there is less risk of transmission because we're in summer, the schools aren't in session, the universities aren't in session. So all of those are arguments for relaxation now. But it would have been better if we'd had the sustained note of caution from the government from the beginning, rather than all this rhetoric around Freedom Day. Mark Harper's right to say we have to live with COVID, but that does mean that some of the practices that we regarded as normal in the pre-COVID era will need to be rethought. It doesn't mean that you go living with COVID means changing the way we live in order to live safely with COVID. It doesn't mean pretending that it doesn't exist.
Really interesting as well, Stephen. I mean, it sounds kind of frankly that you think the government are making a mistake with this, at least with the messaging on it. So in one word, is that right?
I think I think they're right to relax, but I think they should have emphasised the caution message from the beginning. The Prime Minister some weeks ago was saying this must be irreversible. Ministers are at pains now to say that it's not irreversible if the infection rate makes a reversal necessary.
And just very, very finally on that point, listening to that press conference yesterday, it is clear now that we could well be seeing restrictions again in the autumn, in the winter.
Well, like any other human being, I hope that isn't necessary. But I fear that by not emphasising the caution message now, we make further restrictions later in the year more likely.
And Steve, just while we've got you there, we're also obviously today focusing quite a big story about the criticism that actually one England player, Tyrone Mings, has chucked to Priti Patel about the calling or branding, taking the knee as gesture politics. Many people calling the Home Secretary this morning a hypocrite when it comes to that. Do you agree? Is she a hypocrite? Has she kind of got things wrong in this regard?
Well, I disagree with her line on taking the knee. And I think actually the best line on this that I've seen in the last few hours has come from Lady Varsi, who says those who engage in dog whistle politics shouldn't be surprised when the dog barks.
Do you think she should resign over this? Is it a resigning issue?
No, I don't think it's a resigning matter, but I do think I heard you earlier on saying that words, the context in which words are used matters. And I think the Home Secretary should take account of that.
Okay.